And here we go with part 2, right? So no, it just doesn't happen, right? Let's talk about some individual differences, like locus of control. To what extent do you believe that you are responsible for the outcomes that you generate? Right? If you're internal, and this is a rate on a continuum, people with high internal locus of control believe that they cause the results of their life. So, I am a causal being. I am the master of my universe is a very high internal locus of control attitude. People with external locus of control, the locus of control, the area, the locus, the center of control of their lives, people with external locus of control, it's outside of them. So they're not causal beings. Life happens to them, right? They don't make life happen. That's internal. I make life happen. Oh, shit happens to me. It's external. So, belief that many of life's outcomes are beyond one's immediate control, and they might sing that beautiful song from My Fair Lady with a little bit of luck, right? Or they might put this bumper sticker on their car, shit happens. External locus people, shit happens. They're victims of the world, of chance, of fortune, right? High internals, I'll leave you with this, they say, I make shit happen. And notice, this is a continuum, so people are somewhere along this dimension. Now, as promised in part 1, I talked about self-monitoring only for a moment. What does it mean? It means I'm capable of observing my own behavior, understanding the effect of the behavior on others, and finally, the last aspect is managing my behavior, manipulating my behavior to create a desired effect. So if I was a good salesman, right, it would benefit me to be what's called a high self-monitor, to be high in this skill. That is, I'm a salesman. Let's say I'm selling used cars at a car lot. You walk up and I say, hi, how are you? And I ask you a question or two about yourself, question one or two of the things you need, and what I'm doing is sizing you up. What I'm thinking is this person, who is this person? What are they like? And what approach can I use to make us the most compatible and therefore increase the likelihood that I make the sale? All right. So, but it's an awareness of one's impact on others, part 1, and part 2 is a willingness to change me up to alter the impact on the other person. So high self-monitors are sensitive and they're willing to adjust. Low self-monitors don't adjust and they might not even notice the impact they have, right? So low self-monitor, to me, it's kind of like the Popeye effect. And if you're familiar with the Popeye cartoon, you might not be, but what did Popeye always say? I am what I am, and that's what I am. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. And that's the deal. Popeye is Popeye, regardless of how you react, whether he's going to make the sale or not. He's Popeye, and that's the way it's going to be. End of story. Now, I will say this, that low self-monitors are often viewed as being more genuine and being more themselves, right? If I'm willing to adapt myself to the situation, then I'm becoming somewhat chameleon-like. Now, some people might view that favorably, but some people might say, oh, this guy's phony, or he just kind of conforms to whatever's going around. Where's the true core self? Right? So there's flip sides to it. You can view it negatively or positively if you so desire. Really important depending on the job. There are some jobs that probably scream to hire high self-monitors. Other jobs probably better with low self-monitors or somewhere in between. To what extent do you identify with the organization? We've talked about this. We'll talk about this in lesson 6, right? The incorporation of organizational values into one's identity. To what extent am I a representative of my organization if I internalize my organization's values? Now, if we have value congruence, and this is something we, again, discuss in lesson 6, right, then this becomes kind of easy and I identify readily with the organization. To the extent I don't identify with the organization's values, right, then there may be a value incongruence, which leads to lower organizational identification. Now, this can be tied to social identity theory, and the idea is by belonging to a group, Tajfel and Turner, way back in '71, with social identity theory, said, if I belong to a group, my group membership automatically increases my self-esteem. Good group, bad group, doesn't matter. As long as I'm a member of a group, then I get a boost in self-esteem. Same with organizations. If I'm a member of an organization, if I say, hey, look, I'm with the Ohio State Psychology Department, my self-esteem goes up because I'm a member, right? And it's even better if it's a good group, right? But it also leads us to differentiate our in-group from an out-group. And it's like, it's interesting to hear. I heard this in a meeting we had maybe about 2 weeks ago, was how are people in the psychology different, let's say, in the psychology department differ, let's say, from professors in the math department, or in engineering, or in chemistry, right? And notice, it's a fair question because we self-select into these areas. It's not an ethnicity thing where we're born to it. We actually made the choice to become a psychologist or become a mathematician. And are there differences, right, in the people? And I'm sure in dealing with your professors, you maybe seen some differences as well. So let's talk about self-management, because ideally, as a leader, I want people to take on the management aspect for themselves to the extent that they can. Because I have to lead. I don't want to, be hovering around my people, managing them. If they could learn to manage themselves, that'd be freaking awesome, because then I can go lead and they can follow successfully. So in this model of self-management or learning, right, the person, the psychological self, what are some of the skills or the abilities or tools that they can use to manage themselves? Well, symbolic coding is the way that they understand their world. So they create explanations, narratives surrounding what they do, right? Why am I doing this? Can I do this, right? So, and what does it mean to do this? And then rehearsal. So often we have at our disposal the ability to rehearse to improve ourselves in a task. And then how many of you engage in self-talk? Dude, you can do this. I know you can do this. You've done something very similar to this before. Just buckle down. You got this. And think about how important that is for you to be able to tell yourself, you got this, right? Now, situational cues, how do we manage ourselves? We set up situations like calendars, right, with alarms. So that's one way. So it's reminders and attention focusers. We can develop self-observation data, and we can track our performance in a certain area. And this should be part of a performance review, right? Negative cues we should avoid, and we learn to. This does not affect me well, so I'm going to stay the hell away from this, right? It could be a person, it could be a situation, right? The seeking out of positive cues. And notice that I literally seek out positive feedback about myself. Okay? Personal goal setting, that is, I'm a work in progress and I'm under continuous improvement. Deming would love us. He would embrace us for this. Hey, I'm getting better, and I can demonstrate how I'm getting better because I can show you measurements to demonstrate this. And I make deals with myself, self-contracts. And this is very behavioral. So B.F. Skinner would be really proud of us. Boy, if I complete this properly, then I'm going to reward myself. That is, right? So behavior yields consequence. And I manage this on my own. We learn how to do this. So this leads us to the idea of self-reinforcement. But self-punishment is the other side. If I don't get it done, then I'm going to stay until I do get it done. We build activities into the task that are naturally rewarding. Increase one's self of competence, self-control, purpose, so that I do things that are meaningful, and then I remind myself of what they mean. I build my own self-efficacy through this process. And then I seek out reinforcement from appropriate others. So I might take a course design, right, and to someone I respect, and I say, hey, what do you think of this component? Or what the hell do you think about this assignment? I remember, well, for this semester, I said, I'm going to have an extra credit assignment where people tell me how to improve an assignment. And my colleague said, well, that's really cool. I really like that idea. Don't blame me if I steal your idea. And I'm going, hey, head on, enjoy, right? And that means a lot to me because I consider those people to be experts in what they do, that is teaching psychology. So if I shoot an idea out and they say, yeah, I like that, then that has real super duper reinforcing qualities. Now, behavior is the changes needed for self-improvement. It's one thing to talk your game, but you got to walk the walk. You can't just talk the walk or however the hell that statement goes. So what do we know now? We need some arrows. And notice, we got bidirectional arrows that go every which way here. right? And as we do this, they reinforce each other. So this really is a model of self-management. If you want to become the poo in your workplace and you want to advance yourself, then you learn how to manage yourself. And you don't rely on your manager and your leader to be always watching you, telling you what to do, reminding you, etc. You take it upon yourself to do these things, and you put your best foot forward, and you demonstrate what the hell you're made of, right? And that you can self-manage yourself. Self-manage. I guess you just self-manage. You don't self-manage yourself. That's highly redundant. All right. Let's shift gears here a little bit. Personality and intelligence. What's the deal? Well, personality psychology and a lot of quantitative psychology looks at all these person variables, tries to quantify them, develop instruments to measure them, and then use those instruments to demonstrate how these personality qualities are predictive of performance in our context within an organization. So how many personality traits are there? Last number I heard was about 11 to 200,000. So there's a lot of personality. There's as many traits as labels that we can make. The big question is, are of any and all of these personality traits, are some personality traits more useful to measure and consider? Are they more predictive than others? And it turns out that, yeah, maybe they are. The NEO, the Big Five personality dimensions, and many of you already know the Big Five, and for those of you who don't, I will go through it quickly. These 5 personality traits, through literally decades of research, have been shown to be more predictive than other personality traits, and therefore are used more often in research to predict behavioral outcomes. One is openness, non-openness, and this is basically how open or how much do you enjoy engaging in new experiences. How open are you to new experiences, or to what extent do you prefer the tried and true as the way to go? Friday night, you're going out to dinner. Well, we're not. I hope we're not, because we need to stay at home so that we can maybe in our lifetime get COVID under control. New restaurant opens up. What are you going to do Friday night? You're going to go to someplace that you know well and you enjoy? Or is it like you're just driven to go to that new place simply because it's new? Openness to new experience, right? Conscientiousness versus undirectedness. To what extent can you be relied upon to do what needs to be done in a timely manner? And that's the conscientiousness part. Undirected, people kind of float about, and maybe sometimes they can be relied upon, but other times not so much. Right? Extroversion, introversion, outgoing versus inwardly focused. But let me restate that in another way. How do you like to process information? Some of my best ideas as an extrovert come when I'm in conversation with other people and we're sharing ideas, and those ideas get shaped out here in the ether, and so I'm extroverted because I need other people, because I need to talk about things with them, use their input, right, and meld it all together. So it's really kind of a way of processing information for extroverts, to process information as part of at least a pair, if not a collective. Introverts might be a tad more distractible, so they like to focus inwardly and really be with the info inside themselves and spend some time with it without distraction, right? So it's not that one is superior to the other, and when we talk about goodness of fit, there are certain occupations where an introvert, or certain tasks, maybe tasks is a better word than occupation, certain tasks where an introvert maybe has a leg up, and other tasks where an extrovert has a leg up. Is introversion, extroversion then a good predictor of performance on certain tasks? And we would answer, all else being equal, it's a reasonable predictor. Now, agreeableness versus antagonism. To what extent is a person agreeable and they'll go along to get along? To what extent is another person in your face antagonistic? And notice for this personality variable, a lot of people point to the center of the continuum as being the sweet spot. Neither being overly agreeable nor overly antagonistic. And then neuroticism versus emotional stability. And here what we're talking, emotionally stable people are just that. Not a lot of fluctuations or labile reactions to their environment. So they remain pretty stable. Neurotic people higher in neuroticism tend to be anxious, worrying, nervous, and more impacted by situational variables. So you can test yourself if you want. And I've taken the Genuine Neo, and it has to be administered by a clinician in the state of Ohio, someone who's licensed to do that. But there's a lot of tests on the web. You know that. When I recommend a web-based test, it's usually because I've taken the official test, like the Neo, right? And then I've also taken this web-based test, and guess what? It gave me the same score. So I see then the web-based test is having some evidence of being consistent with the clinically produced test. So if you want to take the Neo, go to outofservice.com, Big 5, and you can take the Neo and test yourself on the Big 5 test results, and you'll get a sample that looks something like this. Open to experience or intellect. High scores tend to be original, creative, curious. Complex, low scores tend to be conventional, down to earth, narrow interests, and less creative. This person then, and what the output says is, this person enjoys having novel experiences and seeing things in new ways. The percentile score simply means that if 100 people take this test and we line them up in the order of their scores, this person has the 84th highest score of the sample, or 84th percentile, if you will, which means 16% of a sample, any given random sample, should score more highly, right? And 83% of any given sample should score more lowly. I guess this is the easiest way to get a percentile understanding. Let's look at conscientiousness in the same context then. High scores tend to be reliable, well-organized, self-disciplined, careful. Low scores tend to be disorganized, undependable, negligent. This person is very well organized. They can be relied upon. Their conscientiousness percentile is 92%. So there's about only 8% of a sample that will outdo this person in conscientiousness. Extroversion, this person happens to be an extrovert. High scores tend to be sociable, friendly, fun-loving, talkative. Low scores tend to be introverted, reserved, inhibited, quiet. This person's relatively social, percentile 79. Agreeableness, this person's spot on in the middle, percentile 50. High scores tend to be good-natured, sympathetic, courteous. Low scores tend to be critical, rude, harsh, callous. This person's in neither. And then neuroticism. High scores tend to be nervous, high-strung, insecure, worrying. Low scores tend to be calm, relaxed, secure, hardy. This person probably remains calm even in intense situations. I would hope so. Their percentile is 1. So in any given sample, this person would be the lowest score on neuroticism. So what does it all mean? I mean, it's a fun parlor game. It's like playing astrology. Yeah, I'm a Sagittarius. So what does it mean to be a Sagittarius? Well, that's the sign of the archer. You know, I got the centaur thing going. Tend to be outgoing. Tend to enjoy the good things in life. Tend to be outspoken. These are, so what, right? We know the astrology for the most part is bullshit and predicts nothing. But does the Big 5 predict anything? Oh, correlate to the Big 5? Extroversion is related to promotion, salary level, and career satisfaction. Is it no wonder? Extroverts are outspoken. They have no problem usually expressing their needs or desires. They'll chase after opportunities if they're presented to them. And this thing gives them access to opportunity like promotion. They're more willing to ask for a raise, right? And therefore more willing to experience career satisfaction because they're more willing to be outspoken about what works for them and what doesn't. Conscientiousness is related to performance, but it's not a tremendously strong predictor, but it's still a predictor, right? Neuroticism is related to job satisfaction, but remember, this is an inverse relationship. The more neurotic, probably the less satisfied with the job. Now, let's look at another test, the Minnesota Multi-Phasic Personality Inventory. This is in its at least second iteration. And this is a test that is used to screen people from employment practices. And it's 500 some odd questions that are answered agree or disagree. and it measures, I think, 13 different constructs. So there's, 30, 40 questions per construct, and so every construct you get an aggregate score that's based on your response to, let's say, 30 different questions, right? 40 different questions, if you will. Downside to the MMPI is it's used to screen people out of secure positions, etc. But the problem is everyone knows the MMPI now, and you can go to websites that explain the MMPI to you and tell you how to fake or cheat the MMPI. So this has become so prevalent that it's really the source of a lot of inaccurate results because people aren't answering it honestly. Let's try some questions. I want you to, do you agree or disagree? I feel that life is worthwhile and interesting. What do you think that's measuring? Well, if you answer no, you disagree, then it's probably indicative of depression. Now notice there's like I said, there's like 30 questions that are similar to this one, so it gives you an aggregate score. Now, let's try another one. Evil people are trying to influence my mind. And I know as you sit here and watch this video, you say, well, yeah, that's school. No, that's not what they're talking about, right? So if you agree, evil people are trying to influence your mind, then that might be demonstrative of a personality trait of paranoia. And now, I seem to hear things that other people can't hear. And this is not auditory acuity, folks. This is auditory hallucinations. And if people agree with a lot of questions similar to this one, then it might be evidence of schizophrenia. So it can be used as a clinical pre-screening tool, but it's also used as an occupational pre-screening tool. Back in the day when you scored this stuff by hand, you'd get a chart like this, and you say, okay, well, you can see the normal range. We have lines that represent standard deviations from normal, and once you go above this line, then it's like, wow, that is really high above, or getting high above what would be considered the normal range. And let's take a look then. Oh my God. So I use this test to see if I want to hire Jeff to work for my armored car company. And the armored car company, these people drive around, they pick up cash. They may have within anywhere from $1 to $3 million in their armored car at the end of the day. Do I want to hire Jeff? Well, he's off the scale almost on psychopathic deviancy. I don't think Jeff is going to be well qualified for our position of trust, right? We also see that Jeff has an elevated level of schizophrenia and hypomania. So I'm going to screen Jeff right the hell out. And if I was hiring police officers, I think we should hire Jeff the hell out. If I was hiring presidents... wasn't that a funny comment? I'm a big fan of pre-screening politicians. If they want to run for office, then they should be pre-screened. And if they have issues, then they shouldn't be allowed to run for office. There's too much at risk to hire people who are going to be harmful to the people they represent. Regardless, we're going to screen Jeff the hell out. But notice that if you want to become a police officer, you can go to websites that tell you how to become a police officer, and they tell you how to cheat this test. And the irony is way too steep to even kind of consider there. So, problems with the MMPI. It's a poor correlation with job performance. So when we actually test its reliability in predicting job performance, its validity, not too good. Differential validity based on race and perhaps culture. So we see it's more valid for white folks and less valid for people of color, and that might have to do with the language, culture, etc. Whole bunch of issues. And self-presentation is a huge issue. That is, people can fake it, and people can train to fake it. The interpretation, meaning, and unskilled application is another big problem. That is, a lot of people give these tests and they're not trained to do so. A lot of these people have had like one psychology course and they work for some organization, and now they're giving personality tests and they have no clue what they mean. So let's stop now and go on